and welcome to the last episode of Translation Confidential for 2025. I'm actually getting a little teary-eyed. This is our 2025 wrap-up episode. We've done these in some different flavors from year to year, Patrick. Let's get rolling. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I think we can start with a news story from, surprise, surprise, Slater, one of our favorite sources to grab our industry news. But there was an exciting acquisition this week, and we have obviously Peter with us as the acquirer in this equation. So I want to turn it over to you to announce the most recent acquisition for Argo.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very excited. We're bringing on the Magnum Group from Philadelphia, and this is our third acquisition. I feel like I learn something every time. This has gone relatively smoothly. The one wrinkle is, I think, are the holidays. We've never done one over the holidays. We've typically done them in May, oddly enough. The other two were almost exactly the same dates. But yeah, everything was great. Glad to do it. I mean, really the story is, I think, that there are tectonic shifts that we've been talking about all year in our industry. And I think we're going to see more mergers and acquisitions in 26, certainly from us. I know we're still on the hunt. We're already working on our next one. So yeah, excited to bring those folks on and bring their clients over, and all good, Patrick. Really nice way to end the year.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I guess my question is, I know you mentioned likely more acquisitions on your horizon. Do you feel like the behemoths are going to be looking for more acquisitions of companies that may be struggling, or do you think it's going to be more small and mid-market kind of swallowing up some of the other small and mid-market agencies that are struggling?
I mean, my guess, Patrick, and again, this is just based on what I've seen over the years and what I'm hearing. My guess is it's going to be on the lower end of the market, kind of where we live. I'd say, mid-market size and down. I think the big guys, I mean, if you read everything online and sort of what Slater talks about and some of the other industry sources, the big guys are struggling a little bit. They've had a lot of right sizing. They've had a lot of issues. I think they'll probably use their capital to buy more technology. I think that's probably, and we've seen some of those deals already, but I think you'll see them buying more technology to try to get, more vertical integration. I'm not sure. We'll have to hit rewind on this next year and see.
Yeah,
but
I was going to say, I'll keep you honest in a year. We'll talk about it then.
Yes, we will definitely get the transcript for this and go over it next year when we do our wrap up. But I think, if we believe what we read, there is a bit of an AI bubble building. And I think that'll certainly reverberate into the translation industry if that bubble were to burst. So I think if that happens, what I would hope we'll see is that there's sort of this hype phase right now that it's like, oh, this is amazing. Let's just turn this on. This is cool. And then I think the reality will set in on, hey, how do we really integrate this technology in an intelligent way? And I think it'll be a bit of a resettling year. That's my guess.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that in the past, kind of the pendulum swing and how it'll probably end somewhere in the middle. I think you've got the bubble and hype on one side, and then you've got the doomsday people of like, this is going to eliminate every job ever. And again, I think it's gonna be somewhere in the middle when it's all said and done.
Yes. What do they say? Both things can be true. I think certainly, right? In fact, we'll talk about it on our Spotify Wrapped results. But I think those that have their eyes open and are looking to, all right, how do I find my way in the new reality? There's a spot for them. For those that are just saying, this is a fad,
right?
I don't need to think about that. I think that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to go forward.
And I think there's buyers who are probably looking for suppliers to say if and how they're using AI, and they want that when they're doing an RFP. I'm assuming that's going to be a question if it's not already. It's how are you leveraging AI in your workflows?
Absolutely.
And it's a simple question I would encourage every buyer to ask, and you'll get some interesting replies, I'm sure.
At least for us in this year, we've seen that exactly flip on its head, where to the start of the year, there were people that were like, I don't care about AI. I don't want to know about AI. And this is, our customer base. To now it's completely normalized, I would say. And again, I want to stress though, one thing, if you this is the first episode you're listening to, what that means is not, just do AI and run. Like, we don't have one customer that does just AI and run. everyone has a human in the loop. It's just a matter of do they have one or two. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's smart. I
Yeah.
mean, there are use cases. We've talked about it, right, Patrick? You've been gone for a little bit, but even, when you were here, we were doing some machine translation projects for clients where it was research. It was just
Mm-hmm.
that. It was just research. It wasn't public facing. That's okay. Like, that's a good use of the technology, but those jobs are, there's not a million of those jobs running around.
Right.
Anyway, at least in our environment. I'm sure there's a million of those jobs running around somewhere. There's probably some agency who specializes in that, but it's not us. Anyway, so hey, should we move on to Spotify Unwrapped?
Yeah, they did part of our job for us, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Of giving us all the highlights.
Yes, exactly. So this was kind of cool. Listening time was up 88%. Our follower base, those that click on, hey, I'm going to follow Translation Confidential, was up 8%. We were the number one show for 12 fans. Thank you, those 12 fans. Thank you very much for making us your number one. And by far, our biggest episode was freelance translators in the AI age. So I was glad to see that. It's always nice when something we're talking about resonates, and I think it's exactly what we were talking about. So that's really good. And then this one was huge too. Total new audience up 1,000%. That's very cool. And listening time up just under 90%. It was 88% up in terms of listening time. I know last year we were all the rage in Germany. That's changed. Our number one country now is the US, Hong Kong number 2, Brazil number 3, Germany number 4, and Argentina number 5. So that was pretty good. Pretty exciting results from Spotify Unwrapped.
Yeah, it's exciting to see we're still trending up.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. So, all right. So our wrap-up show, typically what we've done is we've talked a little bit about some of the shows and the highlights from the year. And, if you haven't listened much this year, this might be a key for some tips on some episodes to go back to and listen to. So, Patrick, why don't you get us rolling? What was one of your highlights?
Yeah, I think we're each going to go through 3 of them, probably popcorn back and forth. One of my favorite ones was from earlier this year, and it's episode 129, which is secrets that other providers won't tell you. I think that was a big genesis of the show to begin with, as we want to kind of pull back the curtain and get more information out there so that not only buyers can make more educated decisions, but again, like you mentioned, our most popular episode this year was on the freelance side of the house. So that's important to get that information out there as well. And we did this one, I think, in March or maybe April of this year. And it's funny because I don't see AI a ton in our show notes, but I think as the year progressed, we'll see AI mentions go up and up and up. But I think some key points we hit there are just, making sure you know who owns your translation memory and where that will be used and if that will train AI engines or large language models. And just really, again, the point we hit home there is just like really understanding what you're buying. Like we mentioned, machine translation is largely more common than it might be advertised. You might just see a line item that says translation with one cost. It's like, okay, what does that actually mean? So lots of good details to dig into. Probably more so on the buyer side of like what to look out for when you're getting proposals for language services.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun show. I was glad that we did that one because, again, you're right. It sort of goes to our namesake of Translation Confidential. Back in the day when Mr. Mosley and I started, that was our intent, was to demystify translation. So I was glad we did that one. For me, my favorite, I've got 3 here listed in show notes, but my favorite was episode 130, which was our 30th anniversary show. There's so much going on this year. Gosh, we basically redid our entire infrastructure on a presentation layer of how we present quotes. And those were huge, massive jobs. I think we sort of kind of forgot to celebrate our 30th anniversary, which really nice to do that show because it was really a walk down memory lane with Jackie and Kimberly. And I just think that especially like this time of year, again, we get all busy and we don't think, but it's really a great time to reflect. And it is absolutely crazy to me. I don't feel old. I probably do look old, but I don't feel old. And I just think of where we came from and how this organization started and how archaic it was the way we were doing translation. compared to what we do now. And I don't even mean the AI stuff. I just mean like there was no email or internet. Like that's absolutely insane. I mean, there was internet, but only Al Gore and the military were using it back then. So
Did you have to use a hand crank to keep that going?
it was a hamster. We had a hamster. But like, one of my favorite stories was like we would do a project in 30 languages. That was 30 FedEx packages. Like we literally would put the paper manual in a FedEx envelope and send it. And then get a 3.5-inch diskette back. Like that was what we would get back.
I mean, not even super long ago. Like even when I was there, I mean, I remember we had a law firm client that we were working with where we had to mail them 3 copies of everything. It's like one
Yeah.
for them, one for the defense, and one for the judge or something. And it's just, again, looking back on that now, it seems wild, which that was only, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
But they were still like, yep, mail us these files. I was like, all right, time to figure out how to use the mailing machine in our office that puts the stamp on the envelope.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. I mean, it's changed incredibly. So that was fun. That was really, really a fun walk down memory lane. How about you? What's next, Patrick?
And we didn't even plan that the 30th episode or 30th
I know,
anniversary
that's
was
crazy.
episode 130.
I know.
We did not put any thought there, but it's just happy coincidence there.
Yes, I was looking at that today, and I'm like, really? I'm like, okay, well, that seems very ironic, but okay, it's all good. All good.
Another favorite of mine was episode 140, which is we kind of talked about why good translation is invisible. I think we've talked about that at length with kind of project management as well, of like good project management likely doesn't get the credit it does because there's no issues when there's good project management. But if something's bad in that process, it really rears its head very quickly. I think one of the analogies we use that I think can apply to a lot of people is it's kind of like plumbing. Like you don't think about it until there's a problem. And when there is, it's gross and there's a lot to deal with that you don't want to deal with on a regular basis. So making sure that that infrastructure and system and workflow is set up to be successful is really, really important. And again, like it's kind of, you don't notice it until it's not there.
Yes, I like that episode as well because I also think it sort of foretells, where we're moving, Patrick. Right? Like I think if when we do episode 360 in a few years, will we still be in season 1? Because we haven't changed the season, which I actually really like. But anyway, when we look at this in a few years, I think we will see very little translation where it's file exchange. I don't think people are going to be exchanging files. Instead, it's going to be, I don't know, just link to this data source, whether that data source is SharePoint, some CMS, some PIM, whatever it might be. I think most translations will be done by an exchange of data and just tags or some indicator that this requires translation in what languages, and it'll be.
Are you saying XLIFs are going to die?
I think XML still might be the basis of a lot of this stuff, but structured data might actually become even more important, right? Because we may finally realize true multi-channel distribution where it's like it's people are just writing in some light editor and then the content is we might finally really recognize a true multi-channel distribution. It could happen, right? I fully believe that things are going to change even more dramatically than they do now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember breaking into the industry of having to spend lots and lots of time doing messy file prep on XML files to make sure it worked within the translation management system. So I think if you're able to reduce that friction or eliminate that friction, like that's just going to make all of the language services like that much faster.
Yeah, for sure. I think tools like Blackbird have done an amazing job of interoperability between platforms because this platform likes HTML, but this one likes, this automatic translation tool likes to use JSON or XML or whatever it is. So you have to have these levels of interoperability, and they've made that rather seamless. I think we're going to continue to see those things. So, let's see. For me, episode 134, Language Solutions Integrator. What the hell is that? I think if I look at that, I think my initial reaction was like a little visceral, right? Like, really? Because I think our industry as a whole sometimes is really good at drinking the Kool-Aid. Like, all right, let's reinvent
We like
ourselves.
our 3-letter acronyms,
Yes.
CAT tools, LSP.
All of it. And my initial reaction was that, but I think it's actually quite good. And I think was Slater I forget where it was coined, but it is really good. And I think that the spirit behind it is that, we're not merely just doing translation anymore via file exchange. Instead, what we're looking at is what is the client issue or problem in creating translation, and how do we, as former LSPs, now LSIs, how do we solve that problem? So I like the spirit of it. So I've changed.
I'm gonna coin a new term right now too. It's SLSI, which is Strategic Language Solutions Integrator. So that goes like one step further of like not just being like project intakers, but like actually being strategic with your buyers of like, hey, what problem are you trying to solve? And how can we help you like build a system to solve that problem? So you heard it here first on that one. TM.
Patrick, I'm sorry, but I'll be stealing that from you. I believe in your NDA that you signed. Any genius ideas you come up with as part of Translation Confidential, I can co-op.
Until I patent it.
Yes, I heard you say TM right now. That's actually a really great point. And I think, all too often, sometimes whether it's in a sales sales effort or in discovery, when we work with new clients, we trip to old habits like, okay, I got this. Yeah, give me the files. We'll take care of it. And we don't ask that other question, which is the strategic one. So I like what you're saying is like, all right, well, how are you using these documents? How quickly do you need them back? What business initiative does this document or does this content solve for you? And like, what are the sticking points? Because, sometimes, especially as we start to employ new tools as LSIs or strategic LSIs, Patrick, thank you very much, we can solve some of these problems with the tools that we already have, that they don't even need to be developed. We already have these tools.
Right. I mean, think again, I'm going to keep rewinding to 5-10 years ago at this point now, but like, I know we've talked at length about developers who would be pulling the content out of code and stuffing it in a Word doc and say, just translate that and I'll go paste it back in. It's like, you don't have to do that. Like, again, that's such a small example, but it's like, we can likely get into your native platform and access the content there. Like, if you are just able to communicate like what your tech stack is, what systems you're using, and how you want to distribute whatever content, like that's going to be super helpful for your SLSI to be able to give you a good plan of like, okay, here's how this should work so that we can really focus on the actual translation when the time comes. But like, we got to figure out and hammer out this workflow before we start getting into the actual content.
Absolutely. I mean, that I think should be the main focus, really. And I think sometimes we're scarred by our past, dealings. Like sometimes I'll hear clients say, "No, we've always done it this way," and I'll say, "Well, why?" Well, our old provider used to require it, so we put this workflow in place. No, you don't need any of that. Like, you don't need to do any of that. We can work.
It doesn't mean it's good necessarily. It
exactly.
Could be, but like I think bringing in that kind of neutral third party to be like, I can think of maybe a way we can tweak this or optimize it to kind of make it work a little bit easier for everyone, not just maybe working easiest for the provider.
Yes, exactly. That's great. That's a good one, Patrick. Are you next or am I next?
I don't remember, but I'll go.
Yeah. Ready,
one of my favorites from this year was just a couple weeks ago at this point, but we did our check-in on our last year's predictions, and then we did predictions for 2026, and then we went through what ChatGPT thought their predictions were for 2026, and we kind of put them in their place a bit on some of them. But that was super fun. I think besides finding out that we're really smart and can predict the future, it's interesting to see what our robot overlords think as well, because some of theirs were pretty good, but then there were a couple where it was like, yeah, hard no, and immediately hard no on that prediction.
Yeah, we definitely are going to have to revisit that one next year. And then we may have to apologize to the robot overlord if they were right on some of those things. I don't think
maybe, but hopefully not.
Yeah, that was a great episode. That'll be fun to look back at next year. And let's see, my last one was this was our number one show, the relevance of translators in an AI world. And, I think this year has very much proven to be a pivotal year. Agencies and translators, kind of like I referred to earlier, they're just trying to figure out, well, what's my lane? Like, how do I add value? And I think, to me, that's the key, right? Is for all of us that are trying to find our way in after these tectonic shifts have occurred, is that question: how do I add value? Like, what can we do with our knowledge, our tool set, that adds value to the process, and how can we continue to find new ways to do that? And I think 2025 was crazy in that way, and I think we've seen. I think what we've said is in terms of companies that we've looked at in our acquisition searches is there have been companies that have been halved, 50% reduction in sales for not shifting with the plates. The plates shifted and they were static. I'm staying right here. To no fault of their own, in the sense that, hey, I'm just doing the same thing that I've been doing for the last 20 years. If you get lulled into a false sense of security and you're not shifting, I mean, think of even in your new world, Patrick, right? Things have changed incredibly in PR, right? I mean, in PR and marketing, it's a real different world, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of kind of similar to the translation space, or language space rather, but you have to use AI, and I think that's driving prices down to a degree. But like, we have a cool tool as well that basically will take kind of your PR pitch or your story and see how well it will show up in AI tools when you do a query. So it's like, hey, this is what I'm thinking of publishing. Will it show up in ChatGPT when people search for this thing? So like, the landscape is very fast, very quickly changing. And I think a lot of people have said kind of SEO is dead, which is a funny one that our agency hears this year, of search engine optimization, of like, people don't Google stuff anymore, which is true to a degree. But I think now companies are like, okay, how do I, instead of trying to show up in position one of Google, which is still important, they're like, how do I show up first in ChatGPT or Perplexity or any of these other AI tools? Because that's where people are searching. I think it's I could go on and on about this, but the biggest thing we're seeing is just organic traffic across all websites is down about 50%, because there's not one-click search anymore. It's zero-click search, because they're going straight to the AI tools and they're finding the info there.
Well, and I think Google did a smart thing by sticking Gemini at the top of your searches now.
Yep, the AI overview.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's pretty smart, and I think that'll probably put them back in the hunt a little bit.
Right, but that devalues being in position one in Google, right? Because now the top real estate is your AIO, and then number one gets bumped down to maybe halfway down the page.
Yeah, because the Gemini block is pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my whole thing with that, Patrick, is I think it's going to be interesting because, at what point does ChatGPT go, wow, our corporate license are about $600 a head or something like that? They're not making money on $600 a head. Your average AI search, and just to tell you, right, Microsoft is turning 3 Mile Island back on again to power data centers. I mean, this tells you what sort of just computing power is needed for your average little, hey, what should I have for dinner tonight? Search on ChatGPT. I love the commercials, by the way. I like to make fun
of the guy doing a pull-up. That one I've seen.
Yeah, that one. Or like he's trying to plan a romantic dinner. It's like, you know what? Figure it out. Like in the days, we didn't have that. It's like, all right, I'm going to bomb hard, or like, I'm going to try this. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's social commentary and me sounding like an old man. So we'll save that. But my point is that at what point do they sell that real estate, right? So
yeah, I think we'll see ads across all AI engines very soon.
It's coming, because as soon as this bubble starts to get to that point of explosion, like, hey, remember that part about we invested billions of dollars, the PE firms, we invested billions of dollars in your solution.
We want some of that money back.
But you haven't made any money yet. Could we maybe start to make some money? Yes. And then that'll be when you do a search. Hey, how do I handle translation services? And then bam, here comes a bunch of translation services at companies or LSIs that pay.
We're paying for that spot. Yep.
It's coming. It's just a matter of time.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, great. All right. Well, did you get through all yours? I got through all mine.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Well, it's like we timed this thing or something. Patrick, maybe more so than takeaways, just takeaways in general. 2025, the show, anything. What was your biggest takeaway?
I think I'm kind of coming to realize, I think, how LSIs. I'm going to keep drilling that in until it sticks. How they position AI is really going to be what can differentiate. I look back at some of our show notes too, and this one kind of struck me as funny, or what I would call a little bit fluffy headline, but it was I think the machine translation provider said that they deployed an agent designed to complete repetitive, time-intensive tasks across a wide variety of functions. I was like, cool, that told me absolutely nothing about what your AI agent does. So I think positioning it, especially when you're able to show the benefit to the buyer, like that's all they care about is like, cool, you're using AI. How does that help me as the person buying your AI services? Like, what do I get out of this equation? So whether it's, speed, cost, whatever the KPI you're tracking against, I think positioning AI is like, here's what that gets you, the buyer, not necessarily like here's why we use AI, but like here's what it gets you as the buyer.
I like that, Patrick. And I think that, like you say, people want to sell the magic part of it, right? And they forget that. And that's like where my kind of angst has been this whole year is that, how about we look at the customer and what it is they're trying to accomplish before we tell them the solution that they need, right? It's like, oh, well, I can make auto magic translation appear inside of AEM or fill in the blank, or whatever tool it is. It's like, okay, but did you think about the next 3 ramifications of like, well, how does the client review happen? How do you ingest the client review changes? How do you make this so it's scalable and that it's like we're not just throwing AI at something every time and the results are different. There's no consistent, all of those things. So for me, like if we take all the things we talk about the historic show celebrating 30 years of business, all the way to all the mentions of AI and all the different, what's the role of agencies and what's the role of freelancers in the new world. I think we all have to make sure that what we're focusing on is what do our customers need? What is it that they need in this new world? Is it they need to cut costs? Is it they need to cut speed? Is it they need to create more interactions? So they actually need to translate more content with a similar budget. It's like those are the challenges that I think we all need to gravitate toward. So for me, that's like the biggest.
Yeah, that's marketing and business 101, right? Like don't lose sight of the customer. They have very valuable information. It's just a matter of that getting communicated to you as the supplier on the side of that equation.
But Patrick, I have this magic button. I have this magic button that I want to sell. Yes, exactly. I agree 100%. We all tend to get sometimes stuck in our features and forget about selling benefits, right? Because that's really the most important part. What do our clients need and how can we help them? I think it's a great way to wrap up the show. Your dog wanted to give.
Yeah, she wants to get in on the action.
Yes, she's like, how come nobody asked me what I want to talk about for this year? Next year we will have her as a guest, I think.
Yeah,
she may do better than the robot overlords and those guesses. So
maybe.
Anyway, all right. Well, for this episode and for this year of Translation Confidential, this is Patrick Daley and Peter Argondizzo signing off.